I was slicing carrots in the kitchen when my phone buzzed. It was my brother Derek, an airline pilot, texting from Paris. His message stopped me cold. "Tell me Lauren is home with you right now." She was. She was humming in the kitchen behind me. But then he sent a photo. A woman in business class boarding his flight sitting beside a man in a tailored suit. Her face was turned just enough. It was Lauren, my wife. I was slicing carrots in the kitchen when my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen, expecting it to be another IRS notification or some reminder I'd set and forgotten. But it wasn't. It was from Derek, my younger brother, the only person in my family who managed to live out a boyhood dream. A pilot, he texted from wherever he was now, probably 30,000 feet above Europe. The message looked ordinary at first, but the moment my eyes read it, my hands froze above the cutting board. "Bro, I think I just saw Lauren. She's on my flight, Paris-bound, business class, with a guy." For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. Someone who looked like her. A coincidence. Derek hadn't seen Lauren in over a year. He was probably mixing her up with someone else. But still. I slowly turned my head. Across from me in the living room, Lauren was humming as she adjusted the throw blanket on the couch. Everything about her was normal. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail. She wore one of those oversized hoodies from college, and she was barefoot. She didn't look like she was hiding anything. And she definitely didn't look like she'd just stepped off a transatlantic flight. I picked up the phone again and typed, "Can you take a pic?" There was a pause, long enough for my thoughts to spiral. My stomach started to knot. I glanced again at Lauren. She turned to me with that familiar smile, the one I'd seen for over 18 years of marriage. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, clearing my throat. "Just Derek, asking if he can crash here next weekend." She nodded and returned to adjusting the cushions. I forced myself to go back to cooking, but my hands were slower now. My brain was racing ahead, connecting dots that maybe weren't there, or maybe they were. 10 minutes passed. I was plating the food when my phone lit up again. Got one. Blurry, but look. I tapped the image. The photo was taken from behind the cockpit door down the business class aisle. The lighting was dim and Derek had clearly snapped it in a hurry. But I saw her. Seat 3A. A woman with chestnut brown hair tucked neatly behind her ears, reading something on her tablet. Even from that distance, I recognized the curve of her jawline, the way she crossed her legs. She looked composed, relaxed. And next to her, a man, broad-shouldered, wearing a navy blazer. They weren't touching, but their heads leaned in close enough to suggest they knew each other. I stared at the image for what felt like hours. "Hey, you there?" I blinked and typed back, "Yeah, thanks." Everything inside me wanted to ask more. Who is he? Did she board alone? When did the flight take off instead? I locked the phone and placed it face down on the counter. Lauren walked into the kitchen just then, stretching her arms. "Smells amazing. You always go overboard with the seasoning," she teased. I smiled, or tried to. I looked her over carefully. She was barefoot, like I said. No makeup, no airport dust, no suitcase, not even a purse nearby. "What are you looking at?" "You," I said. She laughed and opened the fridge, pulling out a bottle of Pinot. "You're acting weird, Nathan." "Am I?" She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe not weird, just quiet." I was tired, I told her. Long day. One of the junior agents messed up a case file and I had to clean it up. She nodded, uncorked the bottle, and poured us each a glass. We had dinner as usual. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the carrots I'd chopped while waiting for Derek's photo. Lauren talked about her day, about some local gallery opening she wanted to check out over the weekend. I nodded, responded when I had to, but my mind kept drifting back to that image. How could she be here and there? I watched her closely throughout the meal. She ate calmly, gestured with her fork when she talked. Nothing in her demeanor felt off, but then again, Lauren had always been good at appearing composed. Later that evening, she curled up on the couch with a blanket and started a show on Netflix. Something dramatic, full of cheating husbands and betrayal. Irony, I thought. I excused myself and went to the study, locked the door. I opened Derek's photo again and zoomed in. I tried to look past the blur, tried to see something definitive. Maybe a mole on her neck, maybe earrings she didn't own, something that would tell me it wasn't her. But the more I stared, the less doubt I had. It was Lauren, or someone who looked exactly like her. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my temples. Maybe there was another explanation. Maybe it was a look-alike, or maybe Derek got the timing wrong. Maybe that photo was from a different day. Maybe it wasn't Lauren at all. But my gut said otherwise. I opened our home security app, checked the entry logs. Her keycard had activated the front door at 8:23 this morning. No log since then. I checked the internal motion sensors. She'd been in the living room most of the day, or someone had. I closed the app and sat in silence. Somewhere in my house, my wife was watching a show about infidelity. And somewhere over the Atlantic, a woman who looked just like her was headed to Paris with another man. I needed answers, but I couldn't ask her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I opened my notebook, the one I used when I was deep in a case, the one Lauren never paid attention to. I flipped to a fresh page and wrote the date at the top. I started with the photo. Derek had confirmed it was taken at 3:18 p.m. Eastern Time. That matched 12:18 p.m. here in Portland. At that time, Lauren had been home. At least she should have been. I noted the image details, blurry but damning. Woman in seat 3A, tablet in hand, navy cardigan, small hoop earrings, hair tucked cleanly behind the ear. That detail struck me. Lauren always tucked her hair that way, especially when reading. I went back into the security app. No motion detected in the kitchen between noon and 1 p.m. No activity in the living room either. The last ping from her keycard was at 8:23 a.m. Nothing since. That meant either she never left or someone was manipulating the logs. I stepped out of the study and walked down the hallway. Lauren was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled over her legs, soft breathing, peaceful face. The TV was still on, playing something she'd half-watched. I looked at her phone on the coffee table. Face down. I stared at it for a few seconds, considered my options, then left it alone. I wasn't ready to be that husband. Not yet. Back in the study, I thought through everything from the past few weeks. 3 Tuesdays ago, she said she was having lunch with Denise, her old co-worker. She came home late, said traffic was bad near 4:05. I didn't question it. The next weekend, she said she dropped her phone and had to reset everything. Changed her passcode, too. When I asked why, she said she'd read something about password security and it made her nervous. Again, I believed her. I flipped a few more pages and wrote those dates down. Then I drew a simple chart, days and times across the top, rooms across the side. A pattern might emerge, something I could use. That night, after she went upstairs to shower, I opened her laptop. It wasn't locked. Lauren wasn't tech-savvy. I checked the recent activity. Nothing suspicious, just Pinterest boards about interior decor and a few online store visits. But then I opened the mail app. There were no emails from the past week. None. The inbox was clean, almost too clean. I checked the trash. Nothing. Sent folder. Nothing after last Thursday. I heard the water turn off upstairs and quickly closed the laptop. The next morning, Lauren was her usual self. She made pancakes and told me about a documentary she wanted to watch together that evening. I nodded, smiled, and sipped my coffee. It was strange how ordinary she seemed, like none of this was happening. Derek called while I was in the garage later that day. "You sure it was her positive?" he said. "I saw her bored with the guy. They were chatting in the lounge beforehand, too. She didn't see me, but it was her." "Did she say anything, act weird?" "Not really. Just looked comfortable, like she'd done it before." I thanked him and ended the call. That line stuck with me, like she'd done it before. Later that evening, I asked Lauren if she wanted to go to the coast next weekend. Just us to relax, clear our heads. She hesitated for a second and then said she might have a work thing, some kind of gallery opening her friend Megan invited her to. Another note in the journal. I started color-coding entries now. Green for confirmed facts, yellow for suspicious activity, red for unverified claims. Lauren was accumulating a lot of yellow. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to the little things. She left her phone in different places now, never too far out of reach. She double-checked the front door lock every night, even when I'd already done it. When she got a package delivered, she always took it straight to the bedroom. I waited until she left for yoga on Thursday to go into the bedroom and check the box. It was empty. Just packing slips. But the label was from a boutique in New York, a place I knew she liked years ago, but hadn't mentioned in forever. I looked under the bed, then in the back of the closet. Tucked behind an old suitcase was a garment bag. Inside, a sleek navy blue dress. Elegant. New. Tags still on. Lauren wasn't someone who bought expensive things without a reason. I had to assume there was one. That night, I brought it up casually. "You going anywhere fancy soon?" "What do you mean I found that blue dress? Looks nice. You buy it for something?" She looked up from her book. "Oh, that. Megan gave it to me. Said it didn't fit her and thought it'd look good on me. You're about the same size, though." She shrugged. Her shoulders looked relaxed, but her eyes were too still. It was generous of her. "Yeah, I guess." She went back to reading. I didn't push. Every moment like that added weight. Doubt wasn't just a feeling now. It was a living thing breathing between us at the dinner table, curling up in bed with us echoing in the silence between sentences. I couldn't confront her without evidence. I needed to be smarter. The next morning, I installed a motion sensor behind the garage door and a micro camera above the hallway entrance. Small enough she'd never notice. I wasn't proud of it, but I'd done far worse for less cause in financial cases. I checked our smart speaker history. She'd been playing jazz in the evenings while I worked late. That was new. Lauren used to hate jazz, said it made her anxious. I wrote it down. By Friday, I had 5 yellow flags and 2 red. That night, while she showered again, I went into her bag. It was small, minimal, and organized. 1 lipstick, 1 compact, her ID. 2 cards, one I hadn't seen before. Platinum embossed with a logo I didn't recognize. I took a picture of it and slipped it back in. Then I sat at my desk in the dark, staring at the image on my phone. This wasn't an affair. This was something else. I didn't know what yet, but I would. The thought lingered as I sat in my office, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above. My mind drifted back to a case from a few years ago, one that had never left me. It was early spring of 2021. I'd been assigned to investigate a mid-level executive at a tech company in Denver, a man named Miles Penner. Clean record, good family, well-respected by peers. But something had triggered a red flag during a routine audit, a wire transfer to a Luxembourg account that didn't match any of the company's holdings. I dug in. What I found was a web of fake documents, foreign IDs, and 2 passports under different names. Miles had created a whole second life. Secret accounts, alternate addresses, even a second phone number tied to a burner. It had taken months to unravel, but when it was over, he'd confessed everything. Said he did it for control, for freedom, not the money. That case was the first thing I thought of when I saw Lauren's platinum card. I'd looked up the logo that night. It belonged to an international private bank that catered to clients with overseas assets, the kind that didn't show up on domestic credit reports. It wasn't the kind of card someone got as a gift. It was the kind you applied for with purpose. I opened my laptop and launched a tool I hadn't used since leaving fieldwork, a GPS log parser I'd developed years ago designed to sync with smart car data. Lauren's car was a 2018 Lexus, one of the last things we'd bought together before Olivia started applying to colleges. It had location tracking built in, even if she didn't know it. I input the VIN, synced it to the cloud, and waited. The map lit up with hundreds of pings. Routes to the grocery store, Olivia's school yoga class, the co-op near the waterfront. But there were others. Stops outside of routine, a warehouse complex in Beaverton, a long visit at a parking structure near the airport not tied to any flight she had mentioned. I filtered the data to the past 30 days. 3 trips stood out, all within the past 2 weeks. Each about 2 to 3 hours long. 2 were on days she told me she was meeting Denise. One was the day she said she was homesick. I jotted them down. Next, I opened the camera log from our home system. The timestamps matched. No motion in the living room, no entry or exit from the back door during those hours. The front door logs were oddly clean with long gaps in the data. Either she had disabled the feed or someone had. I checked the bank accounts next. The shared ones were untouched. Same bills, same groceries, same auto-pay cycles. But Lauren had 2 separate checking accounts in her name. We'd set them up for household budgeting years ago. She never used the second one. At least that's what I thought. The login worked. She hadn't changed her credentials since we filed taxes last year. The account had recent activity, withdrawals in round numbers, transfers to an entity listed as AM Consulting. I clicked on the transfer history, 7 deposits, all under $3,000. Enough to avoid raising suspicion. The most recent one was 3 days ago. I leaned back in the chair, fingers steepled in front of my mouth. I stared at the screen without seeing it. This wasn't an affair, not just that. This had layers, financial, legal, maybe even criminal. Lauren came home early that day. She walked in with 2 grocery bags and called out that she picked up that cereal I liked. I closed the laptop and walked into the kitchen. "Thanks," I said. She kissed my cheek and started unpacking. "Busy day?" she asked. "Same old. Paperwork calls. Nothing exciting." She handed me a box of granola bars. "I was thinking maybe we should do a weekend up north. Cannon Beach, maybe. Just to reset a little." I smiled. "That was my idea last week." She shrugged, pretending not to remember. "Work must be scrambling my brain." I nodded, pretending too. That night, after she went to sleep, I rechecked the name on the consulting company. AM. Consulting wasn't registered in Oregon. I ran it through a national database. One hit. Registered in Delaware. Shell company. No real address. No known employees. Just a name and a P.O. box. Classic. The next morning, I called Erica Dawson. Erica was an old friend from college. We'd worked together on a fraud case in Chicago years ago. She left government work to open her own firm in Seattle. Smart, discreet, and didn't ask stupid questions. I told her I needed a favor, personal or professional. "Little of both," I said. She agreed to meet for coffee halfway in Olympia. We sat across from each other at a quiet cafe tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore. I handed her a folder with printed screenshots, GPS logs, and financial activity. Her eyes scanned quickly, her fingers flipping with practiced ease. She looked up after 5 minutes. "What do you want from me, Nathan? I want to know what this is. If it's legal, if I'm crazy, or if I'm sitting on something bigger than I realize." She exhaled. "This smells offshore. The consulting firm is likely a shell. Those deposits aren't income, they're funnel points." "So what do I do?" "You let me dig, quietly. Give me 3 days." I nodded. "And Nathan," she said, looking at me directly, "if this is what I think it is, you need to be ready. This doesn't end with just a confrontation." I understood. I thanked her and left. On the drive back to Portland, I played the conversation over and over. I thought about that case in 2021, about Miles, about the moment his life unraveled. It didn't happen all at once. It was a slow undoing. Tiny threads pulled one at a time until the whole thing collapsed. Lauren had always been careful, precise, but even careful people made mistakes. And when they did, someone like me noticed. Back home, she was out with friends, or so she said. I walked into her closet, checked the coat pockets, the small clutch bags, the heels tucked behind winter boots. Nothing yet. I went to the drawer where she kept old travel documents. Hidden between expired passports and vaccination records, I found a small envelope. Inside was a printed itinerary. Paris. Outbound flight dated 3 days before Derek texted me. Name on the booking, L. White. I stared at the paper. Lauren's maiden name was Whitaker. Close enough to pass, close enough to hide. I slipped it back in, careful not to disturb the arrangement. Then I walked out, closed the door, and stood in the hallway for a long time. She wasn't just lying. She was planning. The next morning, I drove to Seattle without telling anyone. I told Lauren I had an internal audit meeting downtown, which wasn't unusual. I'd packed light, just my laptop, the folder I'd shown Erica in Olympia, and a change of clothes in case I needed to stay over. She didn't ask questions. She rarely did. Erica's office was in a quiet part of Belltown, tucked between a therapist's clinic and a coffee roaster. She greeted me at the door with the same no-nonsense energy she'd always had, hair pulled into a sleek bun, glasses perched low on her nose, wearing a sharp navy suit like she was about to walk into federal court. She poured us both coffee before we even sat down. "I started last night," she said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. I opened it. Inside were 2 printed documents. One was a partial itinerary from a booking agency based in France. The other was a scanned customs form from JFK dated 3 weeks ago. The name listed Laura Whitaker. Erica raised an eyebrow. "Your wife's maiden name?" "Yes. It's close enough she could claim it as a clerical error if needed. She used it on 3 separate travel documents, Nathan. 1 outbound, 2 inbound, different flight paths. No flags, no alerts. Whoever booked these knew how to make them disappear under the radar." I exhaled slowly. So she's been to Paris before, at least twice in the last 4 months. And not just Paris. There's a record of a stop in Amsterdam and a train ticket to Brussels, though the paper trail gets thinner there. My guess is she's looping through financial safe zones. I leaned forward. "Can we tie these to bank accounts?" "That's trickier," Erica said. "But I've sent inquiries. Delaware shell companies are notoriously opaque, but there are ways to push on them." Quietly, she paused. "There's one more thing. The name she used for the travel bookings is also tied to a private email account, encrypted, not registered to your home IP." My contact traced a few pings from a co-working space in Tigard. Tigard is 30 minutes from Portland. "Why would she go there? Because she thinks it's anonymous," Erica said. No security cameras, shared Wi-Fi, pay as you go. It's where people go to not be seen. She leaned back in her chair. You have to be ready, Nathan. If she's involved in something international, especially financial, this isn't just infidelity. This could get ugly. I need to know how far you're willing to go. I rubbed my face. My mind flashed to Olivia, to the dinner table, to the quiet evenings Lauren and I still shared like we were just two people who'd grown tired, not two people who lived parallel lives. Find everything I said. I need to know exactly who I'm living with. Erica nodded. Then go home and pretend everything's normal. I left Seattle just before sunset. The drive back was quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. I just thought about how love becomes habit, how habit can mask deception, and how easy it is to miss the signs when you've trained yourself not to look. When I walked into the house, Lauren was in the kitchen cooking pasta and listening to jazz again. It grated at me now. Hey, she said, smiling. How was the audit? Uneventful, bureaucracy at its finest. She handed me a glass of wine. I accepted it. Olivia called while you were out. She said she's got that campus visit next weekend. Wants us to come. Right. UC Santa Cruz. You think she'll like it? I think she wants out of Oregon. Lauren nodded, stirred the sauce. I watched her shoulders as she moved, trying to see if guilt looked any different on her body. It didn't. After dinner, we sat on the couch and watched a movie. I don't even remember the title. Some thriller with a predictable twist. She rested her head on my shoulder. I didn't move. That night in bed, I pretended to sleep until I heard her breathing shift into its regular rhythm. I slipped out, went into the study and opened the laptop again. Erica had sent another file, encrypted. I opened it with the password we'd agreed on years ago during a joint case Monroe. Inside were 2 PDFs. One was a passenger manifest from a private charter company in Lyon. Lauren's name was listed as a guest under the alias L. Whitaker. The manifest showed she'd been on a 4-hour flight to Reykjavik 2 months ago. The other document was a real estate registry showing a condo in her name in Montreal. I blinked. I stared at the screen, then pulled out my notebook. I flipped to the red section, updated my timeline. Paris, Amsterdam, Brussels, Reykjavik. Now Montreal. This wasn't impulsive, this was structured. I thought about confronting her. Right then, waking her up, throwing the laptop on the bed, demanding answers. But I didn't, because she'd lie, and I wasn't ready for lies. I was collecting truth. The next few days, I kept everything normal. I did the dishes, I walked the dog, I asked about her gallery meetings, her book club. She gave me details that didn't matter, but I wrote them down anyway. Thursday, she left for what she said was a conference in Bend. I checked her location 2 hours after she left. Her phone pinged near the airport. I called Erica. She's flying again. I'll track it, Erica said. Just stay quiet. That night, I ate dinner alone. Olivia was staying with friends. The house felt hollow, like the furniture had secrets too. I sat at the kitchen table, stared at the wine glass Lauren had left behind, and imagined where she was, who she was with, what name she was using this time. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt prepared. The knock came just after noon on Saturday. I knew it was her before I opened the door. My mother never called ahead. She said dropping by was the only way to make sure people weren't pretending. Sandra Callahan stood on my porch in a forest green coat, holding a bag of groceries and wearing that familiar mix of concern and judgment. Her hair was shorter than last time I saw her, trimmed neatly above the ears. She stepped in without waiting for an invitation. "You're looking thin," she said before I could even say hello. "Just been working a lot. Working or stewing." She walked into the kitchen like she still lived here and started unpacking the bag. Blueberries, half a loaf of rye, fresh thyme, and the cranberry goat cheese she knew I liked but only ever bought herself. "Lauren not home conference," I said, pouring us both some coffee. "Ah, always so busy, that girl. I like that about her. Ambitious." She said it with a smile, but it felt edged. She turned and looked at me. "So, are you going to tell me what's going on, or are we going to dance around it?" "There's nothing to tell. Nathan, you forget I raised you. You have the same face your father had when he was keeping something from me. I hated it then and I hate it now." I took a long sip of coffee. She sat down across from me at the table. "Lauren called me last week, said you've been off, distant, checking her phone, asking strange questions, that you're accusing her of things." I looked up, startled. That part hadn't been in the script Lauren gave me. "Did she now, Nathan? She's your wife. She's always been good to you. What are you doing?" I opened my mouth, then shut it again. There was no way I could explain encrypted bank accounts, alias bookings, shell companies in Delaware to a woman who still refused to use online banking. "I'm being careful," I said. "That's all. Careful or paranoid." Her tone shifted, a sharpness entering her voice. "You've always had this streak, ever since Olivia was born. Like if you didn't control everything, the world would fall apart. You're not God, Nathan." I rubbed my temple. "This isn't about control, it's about trust, and you don't trust her, should I?" She narrowed her eyes. "You're not exactly innocent in this marriage. You work too much, you retreat. You shut down when things get hard, and Lauren, she's patient. She's always tried, but maybe she's tired of being the only one trying." I stood up and walked to the sink. I needed space, air. "Mom, you don't know what's happening here. Then tell me." "I can't, not yet." "Then don't expect me to take your side." I turned around. "I'm not asking you to take sides. I'm asking you to not pick one before you know the truth." She looked at me for a long time. "Fine." We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then she stood, gathered her bag, and kissed my cheek. "Just don't destroy something good because you're afraid," she said. "That's all I'll say." She left without waiting for me to walk her out. That evening, Olivia came home from her friend's birthday dinner. She dropped her bag in the hallway and flopped onto the couch, earbuds in, scrolled through her phone. I sat across from her, trying to read her face. She had her mother's mouth my eyes. She didn't look up. "How was the party?" "Fine." "You eat?" "Yeah." "Everything okay?" She looked at me finally. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you and Mom getting a divorce?" The question was a hammer to the chest. "What makes you ask that?" She shrugged. "You've been weird. She's been crying sometimes when she thinks I'm not around. And Nana said you were acting paranoid. Nana said that she's worried about you." I nodded slowly. "We're not getting a divorce, not yet. We're just working through some things." She bit her lip. "She told me you were going through some kind of midlife thing, that you're accusing her of stuff that's not true. And what do you think?" She paused. "I think you're different lately. Colder. You look at her like she's a stranger." I didn't respond. She stood up. "I don't want to be in the middle, Dad. I know. And I'm sorry." She walked upstairs without another word. I sat there for a long time, alone in the living room. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that came before a storm. Or maybe after one. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Lauren was gone somewhere between here and Montreal or wherever else she was hiding things. The walls felt thinner now, like the house was holding its breath. I thought about the day we moved in, the fresh paint smell, the way she danced in the empty living room barefoot, the promise of years. Then I thought about her sitting in business class next to that man. I got up, went into the study, and opened my notebook again. Under the red section, I wrote a new word, family. Then I circled it 3 times. I stared at the word until the pen ink bled slightly into the paper. Then I closed the notebook and turned off the lamp. But sleep didn't come. It hadn't come easily in weeks. At 6:07 the next morning, my phone buzzed. A text from Erica. Just one line. Found something. Call me. I went downstairs, made coffee with hands that moved automatically, then stepped onto the back porch and dialed. Erica picked up on the second ring. We pulled the merchant logs, she said without a greeting. That secondary card under Lauren's alias. It was used in Paris. Same date, same time frame. Derek was on that flight. Where? A boutique hotel in the 7th arrondissement. A room service charge and a spa appointment. The card was processed around 11:13 a.m. Paris time. That's 2:13 a.m. here. That was the same night she claimed to be homesick. You sure it's her? The card is linked to the same AM consulting shell. The alias is L. Whitaker. Birth date is off by 2 days, but the pattern's clear. I rubbed my eyes. And the charge location she booked under a group package. We're trying to get the guest ledger. Not easy with French privacy laws, but I have a contact in Marseille pushing for it. I'll owe you more than one favor. You already do. I hung up and walked back inside. Lauren was still asleep. I looked at the bedroom door for a long moment, then turned away. Downstairs, I opened the drawer where we kept our old tech gear and pulled out a portable hard drive I hadn't touched in years. It was dusty but still functional. I plugged it into the main router and began syncing the last 2 months of camera footage from our home system. The files were massive. Our security setup was discreet, installed more for insurance discounts than paranoia, but it recorded in high definition. Entryways, hallway, corners, the driveway, and parts of the kitchen. I filtered the timestamp. The night of the spa charge in Paris, 2:13 a.m. here. The footage from that night showed nothing. No movement in or out of the bedroom. The front door camera, however, had an 8-hour gap. From 11:42 p.m. until 7:38 a.m., no recordings. Just black screen and system ping. It hadn't been tampered with from the system log. It had been turned off from the wall. The power source manually disconnected. Only Lauren and I knew how to do that. I checked the motion camera in the hallway. The same time gap. Nothing. 8 hours. Just enough time for someone to drive to the airport, board a red-eye, and disappear into another time zone. I opened the footage from the day after. Lauren returning through the front door at 9:27 a.m., carrying the same tote she always used. She was wearing the cream jacket I'd seen in the Paris photo. She walked in like she'd just come back from the grocery store. Calm, practiced. I paused the video and studied her face. No sign of strain. No sign she'd just crossed an ocean. But then again, she was always good under pressure. Better than me. I backed up the files, encrypted the drive, and locked it in the safe behind the bookshelf in my study. It wasn't enough to have truth. I had to protect it. That evening, she came home from work a little earlier than usual. She kissed my cheek, asked what I wanted for dinner, and poured herself a glass of wine. Like nothing was off. Like we hadn't built an entire life on false floors. I watched her from across the kitchen island. Long day, I asked. Back-to-back clients, and a gallery pitch that went nowhere. She sipped the wine. How about you? Nothing new. Reviewed a few filings, picked up dry cleaning, dull stuff. She smiled, but her eyes drifted away toward the window. She was thinking of something else, or someone. I asked her casually about that night she'd been sick. She looked confused. Which night? 2 Tuesdays ago. Oh, yeah, fever, slept straight through it. I nodded slowly. I remember. You didn't even come downstairs. I felt awful. It's weird I don't remember much. Just woke up drenched in sweat. Probably the flu. That was her story, and she was sticking to it. Later that night, as she showered, I opened her travel drawer again. The itinerary I'd found before was gone. She was cleaning up. I closed the drawer, heart steady now, not racing. I wasn't shocked anymore. I was documenting, and the more she lied, the more control I felt returning. The next morning, I forwarded the camera gaps to Erica. I included the timestamps, the power disconnection log, and the photo Derek had sent. Within 10 minutes, she called. This is enough to subpoena travel records. If we want to move now, I can build the motion. Not yet, I said. She's still hiding something. Like what? She hasn't used any of the joint accounts to pay for these trips. The cash is funneled elsewhere. I need to know where it ends up. Who it's going to. You think there's a third party? I think there's more than just an affair. This has structure. It's deliberate. Erica paused. Nathan, be careful. You're operating like this is a case file, but this is your wife, your home. That's exactly why I have to see it through. She didn't argue, just said she'd keep digging. When I hung up, Olivia walked into the room with her backpack slung low. She was dressed for school but didn't look at me. Hey, I said. Morning. You need a ride? No. Julia's picking me up. She hesitated at the door. Mom said you're not sleeping much, that maybe you're stressed about work. Is that true? Something like that. She bit her lip. Just don't take it out on her. Please. I didn't answer. She left without saying goodbye. I stood in the hallway for a long moment, then turned and locked the study door behind me, because the only way to hold on to the truth was to stay ahead of the lie. I received the passenger manifest late Tuesday night. Derek had called in a favor with one of the ground crew who handled the JFK to Charles de Gaulle flight Lauren had supposedly taken. The document arrived encrypted, time-stamped, and clean. As far as the system was concerned, it was just another list of frequent flitters. But one name jumped out at me. Harold Green. Age 52. Seat 3B. Business class. Booked under corporate account Logan Materials Group. I stared at the screen. Logan was a construction conglomerate based out of Sacramento, mostly known for infrastructure bids and federal contracts. I'd reviewed one of their financial audits 3 years ago when they were under review for grant compliance. They came out clean then, but something about that name bothered me. It was too convenient. I called Erica. Harold Green, I said. She was quiet for a beat. That name's come up before, how? We handled an ethics complaint about him last year. Quiet internal report, allegations of offshore routing, nothing stuck, he's slippery, he's also the man sitting next to Lauren, you're sure? Same flight, business class, adjacent seat. Booked through Logan's expense system. This isn't coincidence. Erica took a breath. This just got a lot bigger. We need to know what Lauren's connection to him is. They're not related. Not professionally, not publicly. I'll check financial ties. She paused. You think she's part of something? I think she's laundering money. Erica didn't respond immediately. If that's true, we need to be extremely careful. If Harold Green is involved and Logan's at risk, there are real federal implications here. This isn't just betrayal, this is crime. I didn't sleep that night. I kept going over the flight manifest, comparing timestamps, zooming in on the photo Derek had taken. I hadn't noticed it before, but Harold's wrist was visible and he was wearing a Logan-branded ID lanyard clipped to his travel bag. There was no attempt to hide. Why be so obvious unless you're protected? The next morning, I checked Lauren's calendar. She had blocked out the afternoon for a gallery prep appointment. I knew better. I installed a keylogger on our shared desktop at home, something I hadn't done since my early years in fraud prevention, and waited. Sure enough, 3 hours after she left, she logged into her private email, the one Erica had flagged. There were only 2 new messages. One was a wire transfer confirmation, the other was a PDF attachment titled Draft Contract. I couldn't open the file remotely. It was password protected and timed, but the file name alone was enough. There was no gallery, no client. She was working a deal. Erica called me again just after 6. We pulled Harold's expense log, she said. Logan paid for 2 hotel suites in Paris, one under his name, the other under L. Whitaker. He's used that name before, twice in Berlin, once in Zurich, and nobody flagged it. It's buried under consultant invoices. He's been billing her under training and outreach. So Logan has no idea. Or they do, and they're shielding him. Either way, it's not clean. I leaned against the wall in my office. What if they're moving funds through her, using her as an external shell? It's possible. Or she's the handler. If she's got her own entities and they're routing assets through European pipelines, she's more than a mistress. She's a participant. I felt the words hit like weights. Can we tie any of this to U.S. accounts? That's what I'm working on now. But Nathan, if she's been depositing foreign funds under a domestic alias, that's federal bank fraud. I know. Do you want to move on it? Not yet. I need to see how far she'll go. There's risk in waiting. There's more risk in jumping too soon. That night, Lauren returned late. She was flushed, her cheeks pink from the cold, eyes bright. She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, asked what we should order for dinner. I said nothing, just watched her. Every move was rehearsed, every breath too steady. Over takeout, she talked about a potential trip to Chicago. Said a gallery there was interested in her curation work. I asked a few soft questions. She dodged each one with charm. She was careful not to lie directly. Just implied, redirected, moved around the truth like a dancer. After dinner, I walked the dog alone, letting the wind clear my head. I looked at the lights in the houses down the block. Families watching TV, kids doing homework, quiet lives moving forward without fractures. And I thought about Harold Green, about his watch, his lanyard, his seat on the plane. I walked longer than I needed to, looping past the high school, the small park where Olivia used to play, back when things were simpler. When I returned, Lauren was already upstairs. Her suitcase from the last trip sat open in the closet, partially unpacked. I waited until the house was soon, then unzipped the front pouch. Inside was a USB drive, plain, unmarked. I plugged it into the hidden terminal in my study, air-gapped from the internet. The files were encrypted, but there was one folder that hadn't been locked. Inside were scanned copies of contracts, corporate consulting agreements, all signed by different names. None of them hers, but the signature matched, Lauren's. I took a photo, closed the file, repackaged everything exactly as I found it. I didn't feel sick or angry. I felt methodical because now I knew. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about power. I woke at 4:13 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the house. Lauren was still asleep beside me, her breathing slow and even. I got up, careful not to wake her, and headed downstairs. In the study, I logged into the secure drive where I'd begun collecting every traceable breadcrumb she'd left. I started with the Paris account. Erica had traced a corporate payment funnel that passed through 3 shells before landing in a boutique firm registered in the 8th arrondissement. The company was named Vantage Row LLC, listed under a French national, but the signature on the articles of incorporation belonged to Lauren. Erica had run it through federal databases. She's listed as the authorized signatory. That makes her liable. And now that we've connected those transfers, we've got the start of a paper trail. How much? $483,600 over 11 months. All disguised as international consultation fees. What's the source? Logan Materials. Green signed off on every one. I leaned back in the chair, my fingers clenched. That's not a side hustle. That's conspiracy. Erica didn't argue. We need to take this to someone, not just a lawyer. Enforcement. She already had a name. Detective Marcus Mills, Financial Crimes Unit, Portland PD. Used to work fraud at the federal level before he came local. Trustworthy. Make the call. 2 days later, we met Mills at a quiet precinct office away from the downtown headquarters. He looked mid-50s, dark blazer, calm eyes. He shook my hand firmly and listened for 30 minutes without interrupting as Erica and I laid out the structure. When we were done, he opened his notebook and asked 3 questions. Was there any indication this was coercion? No. She initiated the corporate forms, signed freely. Any joint assets used to conceal the funds? None. She kept it completely separate. Everything routed through aliases. Have you confronted her? Not yet. He nodded. Good. Don't. Let us take the lead from here. He walked us through the next steps. They'd initiate a quiet inquiry check with the Treasury Department for suspicious activity reports. Then, if warranted, they'd go to a grand jury for subpoena powers. We left the station and sat in silence in Erica's car for a while. You sure you want to see this through? She asked. I've never been more sure of anything. That night I sat at the dinner table across from Lauren and smiled as she talked about her day. She wore a blue dress I hadn't seen in years. Her hair was pinned back. She looked like the woman I married, the one who used to leave handwritten notes in my coat pocket. But all I could think about was Vantage Row and how many lies she'd dressed in silk. After dinner, she went upstairs to shower. I stayed behind, sipping a whiskey I no longer enjoyed, and opened my notebook again. Under the heading labeled Power, I added a subheading. Intent. It's one thing to cheat, it's another to build an empire on top of it. Later that night, Olivia came home from a movie. She paused in the hallway. You're up late. Just finishing something. She hovered, then walked over and sat on the edge of the armchair across from me. I know something's going on, she said. I looked at her, trying to read her expression. Between you and Mom, I don't know what, but I can feel it. It's complicated. Can you tell me anything? Not yet, but I promise you'll understand one day. She nodded, then stood and walked away. When she reached the stairs, she turned. I just don't want to wake up one morning and have everything change. I didn't have the heart to tell her it already had. The idea for the dinner came 3 nights later after Olivia confirmed her departure date. She'd been accepted into a pre-college program in New York and would be moving in under 3 weeks. I told Lauren I wanted to host a small dinner before she left, something just for family. She agreed without hesitation. I called Sandra and invited her first. Then I made the harder call. Harold Green. He hesitated at first, said it might be awkward. I assured him it would be fine. Lauren wanted everyone close to Olivia to be there to celebrate her achievement. He agreed. On the night of the dinner, the house smelled like rosemary and roasted vegetables. Lauren had cooked all afternoon, cheerful, almost glowing. Olivia helped set the table. Sandra arrived with her usual casserole. Harold came last, wearing a gray sport coat and a smile I wanted to wipe clean. We sat around the table, laughter light, the conversation easy. I waited until dessert. As Lauren passed the final plate of lemon tart, I stood. Before we eat, I said, I want to show something. Lauren looked up, confused but still smiling. It's something for Olivia. A little slideshow. Memories. She relaxed. I turned off the lights and started the projection. It began innocently. Childhood photos, family trips, Olivia's school plays, a few laughs around the table. Then came the Paris photos. Lauren shifted. "That's you on the plane," I said, "next to Harold." Her smile froze. "Derek took that from the cockpit door. You said you were homesick that night." Sandra frowned. "What is this?" I clicked again. Images of the bank transfers, the Vantage Row contracts, the USB contents. Lauren's voice was low. "Nathan, stop this. You lied to all of us." Olivia stared at the screen. Her hands trembled. Harold stood up. "I didn't agree to be part of Sit Down." "He did." I turned to my mother. "You said I was paranoid. You told me to trust her." Sandra opened her mouth and closed it again. Lauren tried to stand. Olivia grabbed her wrist. "Is it true?" Lauren looked at her daughter and didn't answer. "Is it true?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "You let me believe Dad was losing his mind." Lauren's voice cracked. "I did it for us. For you. I didn't want this life anymore." "That's not your choice," I said. "Not when it tears everything apart." Silence fell. Harold stood again this time without protest. "I should go." No one stopped him. Lauren followed, but Olivia pulled back. "I'm staying with Dad." Lauren's face collapsed, but she nodded, turned, and walked out the door. Sandra finally spoke. "You didn't have to humiliate her." I looked at her. No, I had to show the truth. She left without another word. The only sound left was Olivia's quiet cring. I sat beside her and held her hand. The lemon tart remained untouched. Olivia's hand felt small in mine. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The truth had taken up all the space in the room. It hung between us, heavy, unmovable. The next morning the house was quiet. Lauren was gone. Her clothes were still in the closet, her keys on the counter, but she wasn't in the house. There was a note scribbled on the back of an old receipt. "I need time to think." I folded it once, then again, and slid it into the drawer. That afternoon I got a call from Detective Mills. The federal task force had officially opened a joint investigation into Logan materials. Subpoenas were issued. Computer drives confiscated. Harold Green had been taken in for questioning. He broke in 3 hours. Erica called me right after. He gave them everything she said, the routing numbers, the shell companies, the Paris transfers, Lauren's involvement, all of it. Did he cut a deal? Looks like it. Lesser sentence in exchange for full cooperation. And Lauren warrants out. They haven't found her yet. I stared out the window. The rain was soft, almost indecisive. That night, Olivia came into my study with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked older than she had that morning, more tired. "Can I sit?" "Of course." She curled into the armchair, legs tucked underneath her. "Do you hate her?" I didn't answer right away. "No. I don't think I ever could. I hate what she did. I hate that she lied. But I don't hate her." Olivia nodded slowly. "I still love her, but it's like she's a stranger now. I know the feeling." We sat there for a long time, listening to the wind rattle the windows. Was it always this bad? I don't think so. But people change, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. She looked down at her hands. I kept thinking if I was a better daughter, she wouldn't have done this. I leaned forward. "Liv, this is not your fault, none of it. This is about her choices, not your worth." Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry. "Thanks for fighting for the truth," she said. "You deserve to know it." She got up, walked over and hugged me. It was the first time she'd done that in months. The next morning I called Mills. No update on Lauren. She'd cleared her accounts, ditched her phone, and likely left the country. Erica thought she might try Canada first. I wasn't sure she'd stop there. Logan's stock had dropped 16% overnight. Press releases flooded the media. Harold's name was already circulating in finance blogs. Lauren's name hadn't hit the press yet, but it would. I walked through the house later that afternoon. Every photo, every frame, every object she'd touched felt like a remnant of someone I used to know. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. By evening, Olivia was packing. I stood in her doorway watching her fold shirts into neat stacks. "Do you need help?" She shook her head. "I'm okay. Just trying to stay busy." She paused. "Will you be okay?" I smiled faintly. "Eventually." She walked over and hugged me again. "You're the strongest person I know." I didn't feel strong. I felt like I'd been hit by a wave that hadn't finished rolling over me. After she went to bed, I walked outside barefoot on the damp porch. The air was cold but clean. I thought I'd feel vindicated, or at least satisfied, but I didn't, just tired. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was quiet when the verdict was read. Lauren wasn't there. She had waived her right to appear. But I was. So was Erica, and so was Olivia sitting beside me in a dark blazer that made her look older than 17. Harold had taken a plea deal as expected. He gave the full statement, named every shell company, described every meeting, confirmed Lauren's role. The judge ruled in favor of the prosecution. Logan Materials lost all federal contracts. The company was blacklisted. Their CEO stepped down. Harold would serve 18 months. Lauren's name, now public, was being circulated across finance networks and forums. A federal warrant remained active. I was called to the stand only once to confirm a timeline. The prosecutor was efficient. The defense had no questions. After the hearing outside the courthouse, Sandra walked toward me. Her face looked like it had aged 10 years. She paused, then stepped close. "I was wrong, Nathan. I should have believed you." "I'm sorry." "Thank you," I said. "That means a lot." She touched my shoulder lightly, then turned to Olivia. "Take care of your dad, okay?" "Always," Olivia said. That night I sat with Erica in her office. We signed documents to reclaim joint assets that had been funneled through Lauren's shell companies. It would take months, maybe years, to fully recover what was lost, but the law was finally catching up to what the heart had known all along. At the IRS, I was cleared of any misconduct. The agency issued a formal apology and restored my position. I declined the reinstatement. I had no interest in returning to a place where doubt had once clouded my name. Instead, I took a leave of absence, turned off my phone, and spent 3 full days hiking alone in the Columbia River Gorge. The silence helped, so did the air. I didn't find answers in the trees, but I did find the beginning of peace. When I returned, Olivia was packing for New York. We spent a quiet morning making pancakes. She smiled more than she had in months. At the airport, just before she boarded, she turned and hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you, Dad." I squeezed her back. "You saved me more than I saved you." After she left, I went home to a house that felt lighter. The walls didn't echo as much. The air moved easier. I opened the windows, let it all in. Months later, I still didn't know where Lauren had gone. The feds thought she might be in Belgium, maybe Luxembourg, but I stopped checking the updates. I didn't need the ending to finish the story. Some endings don't come with applause, just clarity. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. This was not an easy story to tell, but it was one I had to share. Sometimes the truth isn't just about justice. Sometimes it's about reclaiming the voice you lost along the way. If this story resonated with you, I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We tell stories that matter, stories that heal, stories that fight for the truth. And there's more to come.